Right, so thank you very much. And Kadir University is in Istanbul, maybe need to mention first. All right, so no, I mean, so it's not a super well-known name, so I just wanted to make it clear a little bit. All right, so I'm working in network-oriented dynamics and data science group, and then one of the projects that we are trying to deal with. So if we do have like a topological, geographical things, system, and then if we can probe into this system through some points, and then if we can get some data, and this can be like, we can have access to everyone and so on, and along this time, this can be like a neural system or can be a climate system, and then idea is the following. So can we predict any critical transitions from this data? So we have seen many things like yesterday specifically, like reservoir computing and so on. They are very good tools, but we are really interested in, so if we do have a system, if we have a time series, then the system's parameters are changing. Can we make prediction in the future? And then we believe that reservoir computings are not straightforward enough for these things, because such case, so first you need to get governing equations from the system. And if we can get this equation, which means we need to find out, I mean, so what kind of graph we have underlying in the system. So what is isolated dynamics for such system, and how these nodes are talking to each other. If you know all these details, then afterwards we can apply some stability theorems, we can apply some bifurcation theorem and so on, and then we can find out like these critical transitions. And then this is quite important in some applications here. We would like to focus on brain application, although we are not neuroscientists, but trying to understand how it works. So like brain has different like parts, and then each part is running somehow different functionality, like auditory, like visual things, or motor functions and so on. And then they are basically consisting of many neurons. They are talking to each other, and then there is also one region which is called ridge club, connecting these parts to each other. And then if there is a synchronization phenomena in this ridge club part, then system can go to some pathologies like epilepsy crisis and so on. And what we want to do, so we would like to abstract this network, the brain, into networks. And then as you see, like we do have here like 4 parts for different functions in this clusters outside. And then we have very well connected another part, which is called ridge club. As I mentioned here, this is the abstraction of brain into networks. Now we would like to test, can we reconstruct this network from only data, and then find out if there is any critical transitions to synchronization in ridge club region only. So our research started in this way, and what we did, so we simply put some coupled maps on this network, and with this equation up there, and we have network topology A here, and then H is the coupling function, how these nodes are talking to each other, and we use in general diffusive coupling here. Then if we use a neuron dynamics, like here we used Rukov maps, and according to neuroscientists, so they do have small coupling, which means alpha is small for such system, and then this neuron dynamics is chaotic, which means the like spikes, the time between, I mean, so these spikes are irregular. Then how can we learn this F isolated dynamics? How can we learn A genesis matrix A? And then how can we learn coupling function H if you only have time series? So that was the question. And of course, as a first try, we applied some conventional techniques like correlation analysis and so on. But as the system is weakly coupled and also chaotic, then the decay of correlation is exponential, and there is no correlation between nodes. So we couldn't get anything. This is the picture for it. Here is the node index, x direction, and then like vertical direction node index, and then pairwise correlations are always about 0, or there is no significant correlation between nodes. This is what we realized. Actually, that was the expected thing. Then we took this equation. Then we have some assumptions, although this assumption is not really well working with the rule of maps, but we rigorously proved some stuff. Then afterwards we used rule of maps are still working, so we can still do our things. And we want to have like smooth functions f and h, since we would like to linearize things as much as we can. And also we would like to apply some probabilistic approaches. Because of that reason, we want to have like a scale-free like network, which means we do have very rare hops and then many low degree nodes in our system. And with the assumption that like hop has a lot of connections to the rest of the network, then we can reduce this equation into this equation. So this was very nice. So if we can do this reduction, then afterwards we can like have some strategies. Like, so for instance, we can consider the following. So let me first explain. So what we do have in this new equation. Here we have like this V, which is effective coupling. So coming from min field, so which is just like a min field of this nodes connected to, in general, we are using it for hop because we have too many connections, then we can write it in such a min field way. And we also have, of course, some fluctuations, but they are finite size, they are not very big. So if we just basically look at this equation, then we see this equation seems like in two parts. One part is deterministic part, like here. So let me show this. Deterministic part, and then this deterministic part is chaotic, and then which is broadband, large. And then as this part is chaotic, when we apply these correlation techniques and so on, so they failed basically. So, but we do have a strategy. So I'm not going to go into details of these things because today's talk aim is not really this work. So I'm just trying to have an opening a little bit. And then, but we do have some strategies. We can really filter out so this equation. So we can split into two, and then we can find out what is this deterministic part and what are the fluctuations coming from after reduction theorem. So on the right. Yeah. So and then this part fluctuations. And if we can learn deterministic part, then we do have some strategies for this. As I told you, so I'm not going to go into that details. But we can remove this deterministic part from the main data. Then afterwards, we are only left with fluctuations. And if we check the similarities between these fluctuations, this is really telling who is connected with whom, in a way. And then we tried this thing so on a network, which is coming from a cat brain, and then from 1993. So which they did some coloring, I guess, in brain. So experimental work, and then following this, tracking this color paths, they constructed this network. We took this network. As you see, like this middle part is rich club that we are interested in if this part will go to synchronization or not. And then there are some other clusters like auditory, somotomotor, frontal limbic, and visual parts. So we put our oscillators on this network. We simulated it, then we forgot about everything. Then afterwards, we used our reduction theorem. Then afterwards, we used some reconstruction techniques. Here we used like basis pursuit, so compressed sensing. I will go into details in the future, in the next slides. Then we managed to really find out like this deterministic part. We removed this deterministic part. Then afterwards, we applied correlation analysis to only the fluctuations. And then these fluctuations really appeared like our network structure. And then we thresholded this network, this matrix, and we got this network, which is the reconstructed one. So this is not 100% correct, but quite good. Yeah. So quite good. So here is the prediction error, and then we had this coupling strength, and then we tried this technique for different coupling strengths from 0.05 to 0.4, and then worked with this much error, like from 6, 5 to like prediction error up to 10, something like that. But this was quite enough for us to make predictions for the synchronization, and then we couldn't go further alpha larger than 0.4 because here is the critical transition point. And if I like summarize what we have done, we have this equation, and then we simulated system for alpha 0.3, for instance. Here is the data for 0.3. Then we reconstructed our network. After this reconstructed network, we applied some bifurcation analysis, and then we found out the critical transition should be around here, since we are doing it with many realizations, and then we have a region for this, and then we did the simulation through backwards for different alpha, and then like straight for larger alpha values. We really so critical transition happens here, and then from the original network. So if you compute this critical alpha, which is 0.42, which was quite good, but then we wanted to do some, we wanted to approach the real problem a little bit more. So this is very good, but our assumption is extremely strong. We do have an assumption saying that, so we do have access to every single node, which is impossible for brain, right? So, and then how it goes normally. So if you use like EEG data and so on, like they put a probe here, and then afterwards they take information of mean field around some space. Then we can consider like this picture. So you go and then you put a probe, and then there are tons of neurons in it. Then they do some activity, and then you learn things. So if this is the case, then our theorem little bit, of course, weak. So then we thought what we can really do here. And we started to play with phase oscillators. Here is chromata oscillators, and then they are coupled like chromata way. And then we said, so if we get information only like a single measurement from this entire thing as a mean field, then we can find network of this mean field measurements. So which means like there are some interactions between these communities. And then internal coupling, we said mu, and then like inter clusters, coupling strength alpha, and then the rest is exactly the same, like again chromatocoupling, all coupling from everywhere to everywhere. All right, very good. So if we write this problem or this equation in terms of mean fields, like here in this equation, here we have z, zk, and then zk is given like a chromato order parameter. And this case, we can apply like Ott-Antonsen ansatz if we consider if we have infinitely many neurons here, which means if we have a large amount of nodes, then this equation becomes into this form, like z dot equals fk plus the coupling term. This is good. So when we do this Ott-Antonsen reduction, then we get here actually where f we have, which is Hopf bifurcation, normal form, and then the like this gamma k here written as this omega k is the frequency of these guys, and then mu is the coupling strength, and then sigma k is the distribution standard deviation for these omegas. We used here Lorentzian distribution. So to make this, I'm actually write this Ott-Antonsen ansatz, it's the easiest way. Then some other parameters. But here, I mean, so the super interesting thing for us, we've been always thinking about this diffusive coupling, but appearing coupling is actually nonlinear. So this is not a diffusive coupling. And then if this is the case, then we thought maybe we can consider nonlinear couplings instead of this diffusive coupling or linear couplings. We took the example. So this is what we found from this coupled chromate oscillators. And now instead of showing, I mean, so this many clusters, I'm showing only the mean fields. F is Hopf bifurcation, and then A is this network for here, I mean, so just a ring, and the coupling function as we found in this chromate example in the previous slide. And then if we check this, you see, I mean, so we have pairwise coupling, right? So which is just a ring. So the oscillators pairwise seem so interacting between each other. And then here we have a crucial thing for our theorem. So Jacobian vanishes at origin, so will be needed for us later. And we wanted to make an example. So we put some numbers, but of course we are choosing this like as resonance satisfying condition. So these are the omegas we have selected. This is the resonance condition for us, like 2 omega 2 equals omega 1 plus omega 3. So they are arbitrary for us, but I mean, we picked them, but it's possible to have like resonant terms, like resonance satisfying conditions for our system. And then here is the other parameters that we used in our example. Then we simulated the system. This is just a simulation, and we have here like a Hopf bifurcation normal form. So just a nice rotation. Coupling is very weak. Because of that reason, our oscillators are not really structured. So they are all around this cycle here. And then the radius of this cycle is given with the square root of this lambda. And then if this is the case, then we can simply plot unwrapped phases. Then we can write down the phases, and we can simply write slow oscillations by removing the this exponentially growing part from the phases. And what we want to do, if we consider we do not know about anything this network, we would like to reconstruct this parameters, phi's, right? Oh yeah, thetas. Let's see how it looks now. So we have these phases, and then we have these phases, and then we find their derivatives. Then afterwards we want to find out, these constants to reconstruct the entire model. That's the goal. And then for this we use compressed sensing technique by Deniz et al. And with some penalization and so on, people say lasso, in other words. And then what we did, so we put all these derivatives, phase derivatives here in this matrix. And then next one is basically constructed library by ourselves. Like here is the constant, then some trigonometric functions using different combinations of these phases. Like first one, sine, first phase, and then cosine, first slow phase again, and then we go like that. We made a very large dictionary for us, library for us. Then here is the constants that we are trying to find out these numbers. If we can find them, then system is reconstructed. Very good. So when we apply this technique, then we find only some sparse numbers, and then the reconstructed network came out like this. So in the beginning, I know what kind of system I had. So it was really pairwise interacting network, but like this outcome okay, this omegas, I mean, so this constants are same, but the coupling term is now different. So instead of, I mean, so interacting pairwise oscillators, now we have triplets here, higher order functions like links. Then this simply like looks like this. So this is the original network. In the beginning, I started with like on ring. These 4 oscillators are connected to each other. Then I simply take only the data and then try to do the exactly same thing that what I showed in the very beginning. Instead of finding exactly the same network, then I found this hypernetwork. So this was interesting for us. We wanted to understand why it can happen. So we are using this compressed sensing idea, which is trying to find out, like using the L1 norm, trying to find out the envelope of these things, which means trying to find the sparsest solution, right? And then we thought, so if this is the sparsest solution, maybe our equation is not the sparsest description of this thing. And we thought maybe there is a normal form for this equation, and which is sparser than this. And then let's try and then check this out. Of course, there is no guarantee normal form will be sparser than the original one. This one will be simpler, but you cannot say it will be sparser. But we wanted to try this out. And we simply applied traditional normal form theory, applied a coordinate transformation of the form like wk equals zk minus alpha some polynomial terms. Then when we do this, this is very good. We simply got rid of from all these pairwise things from the coupling term. So this was very nice. So this is the aim. But when you do this, then the terms, these pairwise terms that we do not want, which are not desired, came out from the isolated dynamics part here. Yeah, then what we need to do, then we can like apply another coordinate transformation of the form. Now this time uk equals wk minus alpha some polynomial terms, like some monomials in it. So, and this became, of course, non-trivial, a combinatorial problem. So, and then to like basically too much calculations and so on. To sort this problem out, then we applied some, we somehow worked some algorithmic things and so on. We produced, like, introduced a special bracket. So again, I do not go into too much details. My time is almost over. But we realized that, so if we have like this 4 nodes network, then if I only basically consider node 1, if I get such a shape, like first guy and then the third guy, they are resonant, basically having this resonance condition. So in the beginning I showed, and then if we start from 1 and then go through the third one through another node, then this is a resonant term. So which means we cannot cancel out this term from the after the normal form application theory, after coordinate transformation. And then this is also similar, like other way around. This is also resonant. And if this guy is connected to 2 other networks, and if this is in the middle and this is non-resonant term, then we can cancel this out. We can basically remove this. And we can find some another resonant terms like this. 1 goes 2 and then afterwards 4. But we know original network has no such a link from 2 to 4. Because of that reason, this is forbidden term. If we apply all these things in our algorithm, in our basically, if we can basically code this out, then we can really understand what kind of network should appear afterwards. Then we simply started from here, this mean field populations, like pop this non-linearity. Then we reconstructed it, and then we found such hypergraph instead of the original one, this kind of network we found. And if I basically define new variables, this this one's right on the left, then I can do the such simulation. I have my original system, I do simulate it, then afterwards I see my phases here, this green and then the purple one. And then from hypergraph, if I simulate exactly the same system, then I find these dashed lines. Of course, there are a lot of fast fluctuations in green and then purple, but this technique only finds out the envelope of these phases. And then was quite interesting. And then we simply asked our experimentalist friend Istvan Kes to do such an experiment for us. So apparently I do not have too much time, but Istvan so prepared an experiment for us. He simply, I am not experimentalist, I do not understand very much, but so he said if you set up such a thing, then he can really connect all these oscillators as we have selected in our theory. Then we got data from these guys, and then we simply had the phases and then their derivatives, and then we applied exactly the same theorem. Then we got this hypergraphs popped again from this experimental thing. And then just one more comment, a last thing to finish. So we found also some interesting results. As you see, so we are using nonlinear coupling terms, here quadratic coupling we have, and then reconstruction gives us such a system. If you think that, so this system is, in original case, is not diffusively coupled, but still, but diffusively coupled, and which means you do not expect to see any synchronization here. Or maybe you can, but not straightforward. But when we have this reconstructed hypernetwork, we can really apply bifurcation theory again, and then we can detect where this system should go through the synchronization. And from hypernetworks, we can really find out this relationship at the edge of critical transition from hypernetworks, but it's impossible more or less to find out this thing from the original pairwise network. All right, so we really started with oscillator network, pairwise coupled, and then reconstruction gives emergent higher order interactions. And having such nonlinear terms, then after some coordinate transformations, really it gives triplet interactions, minimum. So at least triplet interactions can be higher even orders. And such higher order interactions are typical since this interactions are nonlinear. So, and then which is a natural thing due to mean field interactions. And if we do have some sparsity imposed in this model, and from reconstruction, we can only get hypernetworks instead of the original equation. All right, and then for details can be found in this paper down there. All right, thank you very much. Sorry, I guess I just passed my time a little bit.